Hello to everyone who's here and welcome to the Bigger Table Thank You Celebration. We really are so glad that so many of you could join us today. Let's see if I can do this myself. Next slide, please. Doesn't seem to want to work. There we go. So I'm, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Andy Dratt. While I'm Chief Commercial Officer of Imbibe, I'm speaking to you today as the chairman of the board of Bigger Table, an organization that I'm so proud to be helping get off the ground. We're here today to celebrate so many of you, companies and individuals who have come together to make a difference in their community and the lives of others. So let me be the very first today, and definitely not the last, to say thank you. You're going to be hearing that a lot over the next couple of hours. First of all, we're going to celebrate the great work that we've already done this year. We're going to learn more about the incredible need and the specific benefits of participating in this effort. And hopefully at the end, we're going to brainstorm about what we can all do together in the next year, and even a bit of what we can do right now. And we have done a lot in 2020, but it happened because of all of us. We came together and did something remarkable. And as Alfred North Whitehead said, no one who achieves success does so without the help of others. The wise and confident acknowledge this help with gratitude. So once again, thank you. But let's talk about a few of the things that we've actually done. We did the hot cocoa pilot in February of this year to prove that it could be done. That food and beverage, ingredient, packaging, branding, and flavor companies could all come together and make a difference in their community. 10,000 servings of no sugar added, protein and fiber enhanced hot cocoa were distributed in no small amount by the help of a team of volunteers that labeled them and helped to get it all done. We then launched this organization in March, just as COVID was coming to Chicago. While some would say that that was unfortunate timing, I actually believe it helped sharpen our focus. And coming out of the pilot that we did, we asked this group again to help by creating 250,000 servings of chocolate protein beverage mix. We did this together, and we did it in response to the great need that we are seeing in the Chicagoland area at food banks and food pantries in the midst of this global pandemic. We delivered those to food banks and pantries in mid-August. And there's so much more that we can all do together. That's one of the key points of today's Zoom meeting. So a sincere and grateful thank you to our donor partners. There are many here. We're short on time. I'm not going to read everyone's name. Hopefully you can see the logos, but this was a mix of all different types of companies, from ingredient to packaging to marketing to food safety, ingredients, you name it. And without all of these people, we would not have been able to do what we did. And then if we go to the next slide, we made a lot of progress this year in reaching out to the community and creating connections in food banks, food pantries, and across the Chicagoland area. We also want to thank our distribution and community partners. As you see here, Greater Chicago Food Depository, Meals on Wheels, Feeding America, Northern Illinois Food Bank, Beyond Hunger, CredMade, Common Pantry. And with that, rather than my words, I'd like to share some additional thank yous from our partner by showing you a brief video.
Common Pantry on the north side, one of several local food banks and pantries distributing a special high-protein drink mix today.
We're at the Common Pantry dropping off the first of our many shipments today. This is the chocolate protein beverage mix.
As soon as we heard about it, I was like, yeah, we're going to be able to meet a real need by providing this. I'm Margaret O'Connor, Executive Director at Common Pantry. Common Pantry is the oldest continually operating food pantry in the city of Chicago. Bigger Table came to us a few weeks ago, really excited about the drink mix that they had created.
15 grams of protein, 5 grams of fiber.
Only 1 gram of added sugar.
The stevia sweetener is unbelievable. This would be a very high-end product.
And it really spoke to our need to provide healthy food and support to our neediest neighbors.
We know that people that struggle with food insecurity really need high-quality food more than anything. So the exciting thing about Bigger Table products is that the real focus on protein and on fiber and low on fat and sugars.
They really put their brain and science to work to create something that I feel is ideal for the people that we serve.
And we believe there's an opportunity to scale this beyond Chicago to a national platform and use software and intelligent systems to produce this anywhere at any time.
People come to a food pantry often as a very last resort, and when they can get something with such high quality nutrient value, that makes a huge difference because it's not just filling bellies, but it's helping people maintain health.
We were really afforded an amazing opportunity by Bigger Table, and we just thank them so much.
You cannot buy it in the store. It is exclusive.
Bigger Table initiative, I think, was really interesting for us because it pulled together sectors of the food industry that don't typically work together.
Many ingredient companies, flavor companies, package designers, packaging companies, manufacturing companies willing to donate everything in order to get to 250,000 servings.
We came together to get it done.
I'd like to thank Bigger Table for coming to us and bringing this opportunity for us to be part of that broader conversation about how can we all work together as a community to solve these problems.
What we're finding is companies love to get their employees engaged in this sort of thing, makes their employees happy about what's going on, gets them more engaged in what's going on, and actually helps them just feel better about the kind of company that they work for.
Thank you, Bigger Table, for helping Common Pantry.
I like it. It's sort of like bigger tent, bigger table, and that we're all here together.
It's so inspiring to see companies not just doing sort of the corporate thing, but really saying, this is a way I can make a difference, and I'm going to do my very best to make sure that difference gets made.
So, once again, thanks to all of you for making a difference in the lives of others and creating with us an organization to address real issues and challenges in communities across Chicagoland. I'd like to turn things over to our MC, Alan Reed, to guide us through the rest of today's program and introduce our speakers. Thanks again.
Terrific. Thanks so much, Andy. And again, thank you all. We're clearly having some technical issues today. It was a little like watching like a Japanese like Godzilla movie there for a minute. We do have that video, which we're happy to send you the link for. If you'd like to see it a little more AV sync put together. And Andy, of course, I share your gratitude for these incredible companies. And hopefully through emails and other communications, we've communicated that to you many, many times, but we did want to take today as sort of a special time to show thanks. And actually, I think maybe more important than coming from us, coming from our partners who are on the front lines doing the hard work every day of getting food in folks' hands. So we're gonna start with Sheila Cregan, who's the VP of Operations for the Greater Chicago Food Depository. Sheila, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thanks, Alan. I will tell you, first of all, want to thank everyone for the support. Clearly, this year has been the most challenging year in my 7 years in food banking. The need is really great. And the type of work, I know we reached out early to Ellen about something, and of all the people we reached out to, Ellen has been incredibly responsive, and just example of all you guys working together to get healthy food to those we serve is just incredible. I was going to talk a little about some of the work we do. Yeah, so as you look at our mission, we're really focused on trying, there's really two parts of our mission. Our goal is believing a healthy community really starts with food, and as we look at it, we see it as two parts. One part is, of course, providing food to hungry people, and at the same time, we're really striving to try to end hunger in our community. We look at the work that we do. We really partner with over 700 different community agencies, partners. We have pantry partners, soup kitchens, shelters. We do mobile distributions. We also realize that as we try to get people lot of the need for food. We have a workforce development program. We do advocacy work. So we're doing a lot of work. And as a member of Feeding America, you know, we are all working together to really try to end hunger. Some of the programs that we're really focused on, we have a workforce development program. Right now that is on a bit of a, so we had a kitchen program. Unfortunately, with COVID and social distancing, we've had to kind of put that on pause. We're also do mobile distributions where we're actually out in the communities. And lots of times this is where we don't necessarily have community partners that can support work. So we just show up with a truck and we're just trying to get food out. We work on children's programs again. In a lot of the schools, we have healthy markets. So when parents pick up students or their kids, they can bring home food. Again, that program has been on pause. We do work with our older adults, a lot of the residential buildings. So as you look at all the different places, the veterans, this is all the places a lot of these, the food that you guys are helping us with is going to, the protein packets. And again, a lot of real need for some of this healthy food. And the one thing that has really happened since COVID started is we've seen a tremendous increase. So we distributed about almost 73 million pounds in FY19, which ended in June. In FY20, we were over 93 million pounds of food. And a lot of that came in the last couple of months of our fiscal year. And that we continue to see that need. And we see that need across, you know, children, both in the Black and brown communities. So food insecurity in those areas is tremendous. And with so many people out of work, the need is even greater. So right now, we anticipate it being over 100 million pounds of food that is going to need to go out to the community in the year ahead. And as we're trying to do this, of course, with COVID, it has forced us to kind of change even our business model. We, of course, believe in what we call client choice, so letting people pick food when they go and visit all our partners are in the community. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we've had to get into making what we call emergency food boxes. So weekly, we have volunteers that come in and help us, but we're making upwards of 15 to 20,000 boxes a week, again, to get those out in the community. So again, it's been a challenge. The other thing is our community partners are trying to continue to do the work as well. And a lot of them are volunteer-based. A lot of them have a lot of older volunteers. We've tried to help them out by granting them additional funds to kind of set up what we call even pop-up pantries out in the community, doing getting additional cold storage, anything to help to keep those viable. The one thing that we realize, and a lot of you probably saw in the news, where you saw these lines and lines of people in cars. You know, a lot of the people that we serve, they don't even have money to have a car. They're walking to the places they're getting food. So we realize the importance of making sure all our community partners continue to be strong and able to distribute right out in the neighborhoods where the need was so great. So it was really important to us. You know, again, we look at people, if people live in the Chicago area, it's a great opportunity to come in and volunteer. Of course, financial support, the food donations, like I said earlier, without all you guys' help, we couldn't survive. We rely on, we get some government food. We also get donated food, and then we do have some funds to purchase food. But if it wasn't for all the help and support of great partners like you guys, we couldn't do our work. So once again, thank you so much for everything you guys do.
Thank you, Sheila. So Chad, let's turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Alan. And to pair Andy, I know Andy's been handing out thank yous, but really, truly, as Sheila touched on, the thank yous come from our side. Again, we're not taking for granted anything that you have done and put together, but we cannot express fully enough that we can't do without, we can't do what we do without what you folks do. So just know that Although all the hard work you do matters so much, it's truly the reason our network works the way it does. You know, again, just to cover what Sheila said a little bit there, and to let everybody know what a world-class operation Greater Chicago is. Sheila Craig and her name carries a lot of weight within our Feeding America network. She has a lot of respect for what she does. So fantastic job, Sheila. You guys did just a tremendous amount of work in, again, what the last COVID era has been, is what we kind of call it. And so one thing I'll touch about as well, if you're not familiar, I know we have Feeding America kind of in there as well as a participant. Feeding America is the umbrella network in which underneath Northern Illinois Food Bank and Greater Chicago exists. So they're part of the kind of national organization that's 200 plus food banks. And Northern Illinois, as you can see, covers the 13 counties you have on your screen there, and Greater Chicago has a little missing blue piece there on the right-hand side. So sometimes we call each other sister food banks just because we do tend to work hand in hand in this particular area and on this call today. A little bit about the food bank. Again, Sheila touched on some of their numbers there for, I think it was 70 million plus pounds of food they distributed. I know we were, I believe, north of 90 million plus pounds, just to give some perspective of, again, combining those two together. You know, we tend to be very centric in our own food bank in Northern Illinois, as many food banks are, because that's all we live and breathe. But it would be nice if every now and again we put together both of our numbers as the Greater Chicago area, and just to see what that impact is totally between the two. So as Sheila said, there's a robust network of 900 plus pantries, soup kitchens, and feeding programs that we work with as well. So when we say the food bank, it's not just the 4 distribution centers we have there on the map. We couldn't do it by ourselves. We have to do it through our tremendous network that we have. If you could move over for me, Brianna. And again, just as Greater Chicago, we have a lot of programs to support how we support our neighbors. Because again, the traditional method of just having a food pantry is only one part of our process. We have many different ways in which we bring food to our community, whether that be through our mobile pantries, which had 555 deliveries last year, in which we would park at a particular area of high need and distribute. So that was a huge lift by our transportation team. Child nutrition, partnering with schools for after school meals. Holiday meal box program, which you can see there in that picture as well, that we put together and provide for our agencies that have all the fixing, so to speak, for a holiday meal box, so nobody misses that important holiday meal. Senior boxes, again, how do we get food to the particular segment of the population that might not fit within the other ones that we serve? SNAP outreach, making sure they can get their benefits in there. Community gardens, backpack, the list kind of goes on. I don't read every single one of those, but as you can see, we can't do it through the traditional method of what it used to be as the food bank network grew 20, 30 years ago, which is you had a food pantry, that's where everyone went. Well, as our society grows, develops, new initiatives are coming up, and we're finding new ways every year to meet those needs. You can move over to the next slide. And again, a couple more metrics around that. Over 80 million meals distributed, 3.3 million, as I touched on, meals distributed just at those mobile pantries alone. So again, that's how we can be more agile in our network. Because again, your typical food pantry might not serve a particular area or segment. It might be only a zone. So if we can target some areas we know of high need, we can, again, drive out there directly, have a 2 to 3 hour distribution. And again, as you can see, 555 times last year. I see that number, it just blows me away. It's a fantastic amount of work from our transportation team. And again, most of the food that we recovered last year, 69 million pounds, was rescued. We did do an additional 30 plus million in government programs. One of those being towards the last 3 to 4 months, Farmers to Family Food Box, or known in the network as CFAP, has been a huge help. At times a bit of a curse when we're looking at the logistics of trying to make 4 to 5 million extra pounds of food a month happen within our distribution centers. But it's just been a great, albeit small part of our fiscal year. It's been a great addition to help get more food out, because that's what it's all about. If you can move to the next slide for me, please. And as we look, were there greater discussions with with Alan and what we're looking to do for our strategic plan and kind of the initiatives of this conversation today, we recognize as our food bank, and I think as our network of food banks, is that we really have to start taking a greater look at the data sets that we don't have and the data sets that we do have to see how we can continue to serve our community better. I'll be honest that I think that a lot of what we do in food banking is fairly antiquated as far as data is concerned. We're certainly not Amazon, but how can we adopt Amazon strategies to really understand what's needed and where it's needed? So that's really what we're looking at as our next strategic plan and our priorities for the upcoming 3 to 5 year plan. But really, how can we take information that we're just now starting to get on nutrition needs and where those are geographically based upon some new software we're using called Link to Feed. So if we start to know, okay, this is a particular pocket of the population in this area that has a strong propensity for lactose free, we then can really dial in our donation side and say, okay, what can we take, can't we take, and if we have it, what can we do with it? So sometimes we can take a look at, okay, we might only have one pallet of non-dairy creamer. How do we look at our 900 feeding sites and say, all right, well, we can parse that a little bit here or there, or can we look at our data set and say, oh, perfect, we understand that there's 2 or 3 pantries that really run through a lot of non-dairy products. Let's take what we have, see if we can move it through them, which allows us more space for inbound, which will allow us more space for outbound. So I think really, as a food bank, our network, innovation is going to be a key word for food banking in general, because we're really at the cusp of understanding our neighbors more than ever. And this is why I'm excited to be a part of this, because it sounds like this is exactly what Bigger Table is doing, is really diving in and saying, okay, we understand that there's a need out there. How do we understand that need? And I think this is just a perfect opportunity to marry both. All right, and yeah, I just want to thank Alan again. Thanks Sheila. Truly, the thanks is from our side. Again, we can't do what we do without you guys. And Alan, your brilliant idea to put together these otherwise singular channel operations of, it might just be a packaging place, it might just be an ingredient facility, or our next door neighbors, Fona, who do all of the magical, wonderful Willy Wonka things they do over there. How can we put those together and make something that works as a total network? So kudos to you, Alan, kudos Bigger Table, and Chicagoland Food and Beverage. We're just so excited to work with you guys.
Ted, thanks so much. First, I did some simple math, and sort of there was a great study that just came out of Feeding America that said in the midst of COVID, or sort of post-COVID, the US may be 6 to 8 billion meals short. And if I did some quick math and said, wow, if we just look at that and we look at the population in the Chicagoland area, and some quick math shows me that we're somewhere between 17 and 23 million meals short over the next 12 months. Does that sound about right to you all? And what's the best way for, I'll say, this crazy group, Bigger Table, to be able to think about how we can best help you address those concerns?
Yeah, I mean, the need, we've never seen the need so great, and we continue to expect it to continue for quite a long time. I mean, in some information I've heard from Feeding America, this could go on for another 4 or 5 years. Because again, we're dealing with people that are incredibly vulnerable to begin with. And then now, in many cases, that group has grown significantly. So, yeah, we see the need to be great. The nice thing about Bigger Table is, of course, you guys are really looking to put together something very nutritional, because we have a huge focus on trying to provide nutritional food to the clients that are, coming to the pantries and shelters. So whether it be fresh fruits or vegetables or things with high protein, all those things are really important. So yeah, all the help is greatly appreciated, but we see this problem continuing for several years to come, unfortunately.
Correct, yeah, it seems to be the prevailing wisdom that we're not going to hit spring or even when a vaccine should hit the market. Just given the downturn of what has been impacted with the service economy, yeah, it's not going away for quite some time.
I'm not happy to hear that, of course. And so the one great thing, and I think again, we're just sort of tapping into the power of this group, and I'll say the entire ingredient and flavor and manufacturing industry is probably the biggest complaint we've gotten is it's like when we did our pilot, it was, wow, only 10,000 servings. It'd be so much easier if it were 1 million. And so the scalability of this is amazing. Of course, the challenges there are just how much can we get in any one place at any time, and again, and how much generosity these terrific companies have put before us. But if I guess the question is, and Sheila, you touched on it, in terms of nutrition, we've been working hard to deliver against that in terms of finding sort of places in the supply chain where there might be extra product that we hadn't thought of for donation. We're certainly hitting on that. Are there other things, are there other opportunities we should be hitting on?
Yeah, for us, it's been helpful because the thing that makes the products that you guys have talked about, and I know me and you and Alan talked recently, things that are shelf stable gives us a lot of flexibility in terms of, when you produce in large quantities, the fact that we can hold on to them for a couple of weeks or a couple of months gives us the ability to distribute those longer. Because again, as we look at our community partners, some of them are open once a week or twice a week, but a lot of them, even though I talked about 700 partners, are not necessarily opened all the time because a lot of these are neighborhoods and they're volunteer based. But the nice thing about getting enough product is if some of our partners only order product twice a month, it's available for them as well and it doesn't go away. So when we get a nice quantity of it, it's available on what we have a menu system where our partners in the community can order things that they know the clients that they serve would use. So for us, the shelf stable has been great because it gives us that ability to have it there and to move it for a while. And like I said, clients love it.
Yeah, I couldn't say it any better than Sheila did. The shelf stable and still meeting the nutritious aim that we look to provide for our agencies and our network. Again, it's fruit, vegetables, things of that nature. They don't last long. There's a quick in and a quick out, but if we can provide something that can be shelf stable for them, they can pack in their child's lunches, they can pack for themselves, something that's going to have some life on it. We always say it's like striking gold if we get a large donation of shelf stable product that has a long shelf life to it. So really, it's a fantastic idea, and we're just excited to see what the next 2 or 3 iterations of it bring.
Thank you both once again. And also, and I know this is unique, like it's amazing to live in a city or I'll say a metro region like Chicagoland with just 2 incredible food banks. It's also really empowering as sort of a group that is manufacturing food. We don't have to worry about the distribution because you guys just have it so nailed. It's really amazing to be able to say, if we just make a product that we know you can use and know that your neighbors and clients will appreciate, that there's already a pre-built distribution system for getting it out there. It allows us to sort of dream a little bit bigger and think more about how does this all work. And again, one of the themes of Bigger Table is certainly collaboration. And we just, again, having that distribution system already built is just is so powerful and so amazing, and so happy to be able to continue to work with both of your organizations. You make Chicagoland a better place, and we're just happy to be able to help your incredible efforts.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Bigger Table has been a huge help, and it seems like you guys are going to continue to explore some other options. So we couldn't be more excited to be partnering with you guys. So, and I know our partners out in the community greatly appreciate it as well.
Thank you so much, Sheila. Terrific. We are going to switch gears just a little bit. So the vast majority of people on the in the meeting today have already donated ingredients, time, other things. So we're going to go through just some of the basic logistics for, again, because we're a brand new organization just launching in March, we don't have glossy brochures and some of that information. But we want to make sure that we talk about food donation tax credits to make sure that everybody is aware of exactly what that entails and is taking full advantage of it. And again, we're just happy that we're sort of the facilitator putting together the ingredient industry in order to put these pieces together and ideally to take advantage of these. So with that, I would like to introduce Ryan Vaughn, who's a partner at Mazars USA, who's going to walk us through the food donation tax credits.
Thank you, Alan, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to the group and want to congratulate you on the great job that you're doing and the impact that we just heard, the benefit to the area, and it's really admirable, and I'm glad I'm able to hopefully provide some value to those who have donated and really made that positive impact. So what we wanted to talk about today, and if you want to advance the slide, is the enhanced charitable donation, or the enhanced deduction for charitable donations, which allows taxpayers an incentive for donating products that serve for the ill, the needy, or for children and infants. And that incentive allows for the amount of the deduction to be increased over your basis in the item donated to the lesser of twice that basis, or the basis plus 1/2 of the expected profit, or the fair market, or the difference between the basis and the fair market value. And this is an incentive that really tries to incentivize or enhance businesses to donate to those who most need it and are able to take benefit from their goodwill. One caveat or one thing as we talk here to think about, the enhanced deduction is available for for food inventory items for all taxpayers, and that would be non-corporate and corporate taxpayers. C corporations are entitled for the enhanced deduction for all qualifying charitable contributions. So there's a little difference there depending on your tax or your corporate structure. If you are a C Corp, you can receive credit for all charitable donations at the enhanced deduction for those inventory items. Food deductions allow all taxpayers to use the enhanced deduction. So if you go to the next slide, just a quick overview, and here we're going to specifically focus on food inventory. Those deductions made, and I've got a criteria of 4 items here. First, the food needs to be apparently wholesome food, and that's straight out of the law. I didn't make up that strange phrasing, but essentially it's for human consumption, meeting all federal, state, and local quality and labeling laws. Even though it may not meet your actual, what you might give to, say, a grocery store or another customer of yours, as long as it meets those, it may not meet the appearance standard or maybe a little bit close to expiration, and you could still get the credit here for that donation. And the following items is the donation has to be made to a public charity, so a Section 501c3 organization. That's an operating foundation. It's not a private foundation. The charitable organization must use the property for the purpose of which the organization is constructed for or constituted for, and in the use of the ill, needy, or children. So it wouldn't be like a donation to, Bigger Table clearly fits this. Their purpose is to provide food to the community, and they're partnering with the different food banks. If it was another non-for-profit that's not focused in providing this benefit, the food donation may not qualify. The donated property cannot be exchanged for money, hence, or services or other property, hence donation. And that also includes any upstream downstream donation. So if Bigger Table were to take a donation and then say sell it to the food banks, that would disqualify your enhanced deduction. But I don't think that's the fact pattern here. So just wanted to mention that if you're, Alan's telling me no. So I knew that. I just wanted to throw that out there in case there's any other areas that people are making other donations. If the donated property is required to be regulated by the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, it must satisfy those requirements both on the day of transfer and the immediately preceding 180 days. Generally, that's not, I don't think that's anything we'd have to worry about in this case, but that would be if you're donating maybe not approved products or something,
just quickly to chime in here. So, and most know, just to clarify, Bigger Table is in fact a 501c3. Again, we qualify in that way. When we talk about it's subject to regulation, you'll hear in just a moment that we follow all of the food safety laws and regulations. The only thing that's a little different about our product is we don't put a UPC code on it because it's not going to retail. So otherwise it looks just like all the labeling and all the other stuff that Ryan mentioned up front. And then on the last point, and all of you will in fact receive a written statement to substantiate that that you donated that product from Bigger Table before the end of the year.
Thanks, Alan. I appreciate that. And I don't mean to lawyer talk or caveat too much. It's just, sometimes part of the job or what you get used to saying. But certainly, as Alan said, the activities through Bigger Table, should fall fairly squarely right in the middle of qualifying for the enhanced deduction. And I think the last point there with the written statement to kind of tie up those loose ends. So if we jump to the next slide, we'll just walk through a sample calculation, just a quick overview. So if we look at, we have food inventory donated with a market value of $30,000, a cost basis to the taxpayer, $15,000. In calculating the enhanced deduction, you're able to get your basis plus 50% of your gross margin. So if you look, we have the 15,000 plus 50% of the 15,000 again is 22,000, and we take the lesser of twice the cost basis, so 30,000 compared to the 22,500. So your enhanced deduction in this scenario, you'd be able to deduct 22,500 on the donation of inventory that had a cost basis of just 15,000. So you get that $7,500 step up in your donation, and really again looking to incentivize these types of great programs that really add back and benefit the communities at large and provide that incentive to taxpayers. If we go to the next slide, Under the CARES Act, which if you all recall was passed March 27th of this year in response to the COVID or coronavirus pandemic, one of the increases, it increased the limit in which you can deduct charitable contributions from 15% of taxable income to 25% of taxable income for 2020. So if you are making those donations during 2020, you're going to be able to offset more of your taxable income in the current year. The charitable, if it's limited based on your taxable income, it does carry forward, so you will be able to utilize it ultimately. But the CARES Act gave a nice little bump or increase for those contributing during 2020, and we, hopefully we'll turn out of this pandemic sooner rather than later. But a nice little benefit that the CARES Act added. And if we go to the next slide, just talk about some of the documentation that you have to retain. The first would be the cost basis and the estimated fair market value at the donation date. So that's for your financial needs in tracking and calculating what that enhanced deduction would be. And then also, as Alan mentioned, provided the written statement from the charitable organization, in this case, Bigger Table, indicating what the property was, what they were used for, confirmation that it is a qualified public charity, and the assurance that the records would be available if the IRS ultimately would look at that. So most of that is cleaned up, at least that second group of bullets would be cleaned up by the written statement from Bigger Table. The first two would be on the taxpayer to maintain their records in calculating what their enhanced deduction would be based on their cost basis or the fair market value. So that was all I had. I just wanted to keep it fairly straightforward and simple, but happy to answer any questions if there are any, or I stick around at the end, or my contact information was in the slide. So thank you, Alan.
Thank you, Ryan. Actually, we'll add your contact information back into the chat box so that anybody who wants to, anyone who wants to reach out and might have any questions, you can feel free to do that. Do hang around. What I'd like to do is just take questions, finish the next two presentations and sort of take them all at the same time. If anyone's going to have trouble keeping track of exactly what your question is, feel free to put it in the Q&A box and I'll make sure we get it addressed when we go through there. Switching gears just for a second, but again, a related topic, as Ryan touched on, are our food safety plans. And Matt Bodos and Connect Food have graciously donated the food safety plans for both our pilot effort as well as the summer effort of the 250,000 servings. So we thank him for that and wanted him to just talk a little bit about a question that's come up several times, which is, so wait, is it all safe, and is there any risk, and how does that work? And Matt, would you please walk us through your process and sort of your thoughts?
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for having me. It's been an honor to work with this group. I think everything that we're doing is impactful and powerful, especially in this time of COVID. And we've even seen the trials and tribulations that food manufacturers have to go through to make sure that their employees are safe and can come to work. We had a hiccup at one point early on where people said that we needed to shut down food manufacturing facilities. And well, we stood up, to the governor's office and said, no, that can't happen, because that would be horrible, because we already have enough hungry people. But anyways, there's, I'll make this brief. You can switch to the next slide. So food industry is huge, 20 to 25% of all jobs are in food and ag. It's small, medium-sized food manufacturers that really make up the big part of it. So we appreciate the big people and the small people that help donate to this. So because of what we're doing, we're trying to promote these active, healthy lifestyles, right? So that's not only food safety, but food security. So next slide, please. So we just appreciate everybody being part of this team. You can't do it without the manufacturers. So all the suppliers that gave to us had to have food safety plans. We had a food safety plan working with the manufacturer. So it goes throughout the food chain just to make sure that we can have these, as Sheila mentioned, these safe, shelf stable, and to Ryan's point in the law, that we are going to deliver consistently and always safe product, right? So, you know, when we're saying this, I always say work from a position of strength. Don't be afraid to ask questions about manufacturing or the food safety plans or the labeling or what you think. I appreciate everybody embracing their jobs, but as we grow, and I think we hinted at more products in the future, you know, ask for suggestions. Innovation comes out of times such as these, so it's fantastic. We're going to find new ways to feed people. So I always say that food safety is basics done well. Early on in my career, somebody compared food engineers to airplane mechanics. If we're doing our job, you don't have to know that we're doing it. So everything goes smoothly and it just works out. So next slide, please. So, you know, we're focusing on the people, we focus on food safeties, we focus on employee safety. We're preventative, we're not reactive. So what we're doing, once again, making sure we have these food safety plans in place so that we can, no matter what, so that people can have safe food, right? So we work with good manufacturing practices, sanitation operating procedures. We're minimizing any risk, not only to the consumer, but the employees and everybody that's in the facility. So when we talk about COVID, you know, we appreciate our contract manufacturer and all of our other manufacturing suppliers, because this is a tough time to step up and donate, but you know, we're making sure that we all have these food safety plans, so it's appreciated. So the question is, how do we know that what we're doing? Documentation of what we're doing is the most important thing, and so at Connect Food, we're helping to oversee all the documentation and the COAs that come into a facility. So just a couple quick more slides. Next slide, please. You can click through that till they all go through. So the food safety modernization came out, was signed in 2011. We started teaching it. That's perfect. Thank you. We started teaching it, and we used to have something called HACCP, which was Hazard Analysis Critical Control Points. And now we have preventive controls. So this product that we have looks at all kinds of different things. We do a hazard analysis on all of our plans. We look at our process controls. We look at our supply chain. We look at potential allergens. We look at all of our sanitation controls. And those are supported by our GMPs and prerequisite programs. So it's repetition, it's education, and it's training. So there's a group that I'm actually chair of their convention this year. It'll be virtual, unfortunately, but FSPCA, and they come out and we train other trainers. And that's really what we're doing, is making sure that those rules under the new Food Safety Modernization Act are applied to all the products that we're doing here. Next slide. So we have these prerequisite programs, you know, GMPs, you know, basic food safety plans, and we have a food safety system for all the products that we currently make and that we will be making. So we have all these supporting elements that are in there, and we're making sure that we review all of these. Next slide. So that's it. So if anybody has any food safety questions, I can talk about it all day long. It's what we do. But we thank everybody for their participation. We're in this together. You know, we're working with, if public health has any issues, or the food banks, the distribution centers here at Connect Food, and as part of the Bigger Table team, we can all help to do that. And we're just going to keep the food supply running for everybody. So thank you, everybody.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Matt. So again, we have, I'll say, state-of-the-art food safety protocols in place. So we are skimping on nothing. I'll say great. The same protections are in place for bigger table product that they would for any product going to a grocery store. That said, we're also protected by another level of the law that John Shapiro from Freeborn and Peters is going to cover off with us. And those are Good Samaritan laws as they apply to food. John.
Thank you, Alan. Go to the next slide, please. The third part of this, tax credits, food safety plans, but for encouraging companies that have excess food to donate, is the federal Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Food Donation Act. Now, you might be wondering right now who was Bill Emerson, as I did when I learned of this law. And he was a congressman from Missouri who encouraged donation of food by food companies, by retailers and others who had excess food that otherwise would go to typically municipal waste dumps. Unfortunately, he passed away before the law was signed into effect in 1996. And so the Good Samaritan Food Donation Act was named after him. Prior to this act, states had Good Samaritan food donation laws, but for companies that operated in more than one state, it was confusing in trying to understand what laws would govern that company's donation. And critically, what the Emerson Act did was create a national uniform standard that set a floor on liability, which liability being the biggest concern and hurdle that food companies had to overcome in order to donate food. You can read the Emerson Act. It's pretty short. And this is the standard in the Act that shows the factors where the Act will apply to donation of food from a company to a nonprofit. And the food has to be wholesome or fit. It has to be donated in good faith without monetary value in return. The donation has to go to a nonprofit organization, and the nonprofit organization needs to distribute that food to an individual or individuals in need. So who may be a donor? The Act casts a very broad net. As you can see from this list, the definition of person includes everyone from corporations to partnerships to grocers to nonprofit food distributors who might distribute to another one, to hospitals, caterers, hotels, and more. It also covers gleaners. Gleaners go on to farm properties and even either harvest food that the farmers, for whatever reason, have left in their field, or that already has been harvested and is being stored on the farm or in some warehouse. So again, if you're interested in donating food, you're likely, your corporation, your entity is likely considered a person within the meaning of the Emerson Act. Next slide, please. So the Emerson Act also applies to nonprofit distributors. So, and I'm appearing here today actually wearing 4 hats. I'm a proud member of the Bigger Tables board, and I'm excited to see what we all can do together. I'm an attorney at Freeborn and Peters who practices in the food and beverage industry. I have a personal interest in making sure that the hungry are fed. No one should be starving in our shadow of plenty. And I also serve as general counsel of Inspiration Corporation, a Chicago nonprofit that assists people who are affected by poverty and who are homeless and are hungry. And I would say at Inspiration Corporation, we rely on the generosity of food donors to feed our participants and our community members, the hungry. This includes the Greater Chicago Food Depository, which, as Sheila said, also relies on the generosity of donors and the protections afforded by the Emerson Act. With the pandemic, reliance on this generosity and Inspiration Corporation's reliance on this generosity has grown many-fold. At Inspiration Cafe, located in the Uptown area, we used to feed our participants and members in the community who were hungry in a restaurant-style setting. We have pivoted with the pandemic to serving to-go meals to people, and the need in our area has grown by 300% each day. We are serving hundreds of to-go meals. We pack them two per person and sometimes for family, and about 30% of those meals are going to children. At our social enterprise Inspiration Kitchens, which is located in Garfield Park, we are producing food that is distributed directly to the homeless and the hungry through a variety of Chicagoland partners. Again, as the message is here, we really couldn't do it unless we all worked together. But if a nonprofit does the same things basically that a donor does, but on its end of distribution, it too falls within the coverage of the Emerson Act. Next slide, please. So I want to make clear, the Emerson Act's liability protection is not absolute. As Ryan mentioned and as Matt indicated, the food has to be apparently wholesome. You see the definitions by and large, paraphrased from the Act, or an apparently fit grocery product. That doesn't necessarily mean that it is ready for resale to somebody in the consumer. It can be damaged. It can be considered ugly produce, things that might not sell. It might be past its retail date, but it is still fit for consumption. And those products fall within the Act's protection. And that is a very broad protection, but again, it's not absolute. The USDA classifies sort of 4 aspects of food recovery. One is the field gleaning that I referred to. The next one is perishable produce rescue and salvage, which is collection of produce that will soon perish from wholesale and retail sources. There's perishable prepared food rescues coming from the food service industry and restaurants and caterers and cafeterias, entities that have their own obligations to maintain the food is safe. And then there is non-perishable processed food collection. So it's a broad range of food that also, and food products that fall within the Act's protection. Next slide, please. So again, I want to emphasize the Act's protection is not absolute. It protects a donor and a nonprofit distributor from negligent conduct, but conduct that is considered gross negligence or intentional misconduct would not fall within the Act's protection. So intentional misconduct is pretty easy to understand. It means that, conduct that is willful, but gross negligence is a little bit more vague. And other than offering the definitions that's here on your screen, the Emerson Act doesn't elaborate on the type of conduct that might be deemed grossly negligent. There was some discussion of this term gross negligence in the House report that led up to the Act. It explains that conduct that might be deemed grossly negligent depends on the facts. So it's a fact-specific inquiry that might look at the type of food where it's being donated to, who it's being distributed to, what's the use by date, what's the sell by date, and a variety of other issues. As you know, just because a food product has reached its best by date or sell by date or even expiration date, doesn't necessarily mean that that food is not consumable, and doesn't itself lead to a determination that donation of that food or distribution of that food would be grossly negligent. And it's easy to understand from an example also found in the House report of a box of cereal, dry cereal, that is past its sell date and best by date. Donation of that shelf-stable product itself would not be grossly negligent. But if you had a raw chicken or a carton of milk that had passed its expiration date, those items are more likely to be dangerous to a person's health, and donation or distribution of the raw chicken or the carton of milk might lead to a finding of gross negligence. It's important to understand, as both Ryan and Matt touched on in their presentations from a different perspective, that it is critical that donors, as well as the nonprofit recipients and distributors, comply with the Food Safety Modernization Act regulations and other state and local regulations that are designed to keep food safe. If you are not compliant with those safe food obligations, that might be an important fact that leads to a finding of gross negligence with respect to donation or distribution of a food product. Now, with that warning aside, I'm not aware of any lawsuit involving a donor or distributor of food products for the hungry. Next slide, please. So there are state Good Samaritan food donation laws. Like I said, prior to the Emerson Act, most states had a law. I'm not going to go into those laws today. We don't have that level of time and perhaps interest, but it's important to understand what those laws are as well, where you're donating. The Emerson Act sets a liability floor, right? So, and it preempts states' laws that provide lesser protection, but states might enact laws that provide greater protection than the Emerson Act. And hopefully you'll never have to rely on those laws, but should you, it's good to understand what those laws are that govern your act of generosity. And with that, I too will be happy to take any question. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your donations.
Terrific. Thanks so much, John, and Ryan and Matt as well. Would love to take questions if there are some. Hopefully, and while we're deep in sort of some of the legal and financial sort of underpinnings to the organization, but hopefully you're seeing that, yes, in fact, we do need to have food safety plans in place to ensure a high level of, I'll say a high quality, ensure that no one's getting sick, ensure that what you're donating is in fact tax deductible, and ensure that everybody is being well taken care of. And again, all of that tax deductibility, and I'll say, and the reduction of risk for that donation is all sort of considered. That's how all of those pieces hopefully all come together in there to make the organization make sense. We are doing something unique in terms of bringing together, again, ingredient companies who may not otherwise have been able to donate to food banks because we don't typically operate in finished products. Are there questions, comments, anything anyone would like to add?
I'll add one comment while people are thinking about their questions. And I should say, and I should have added this in the main presentation, but there will be times when there are food products that may not, at the time of donation, comply with a particular food safety regulation. That doesn't necessarily mean that the product is not able to be donated. There's also an opportunity to work with the nonprofit distributor to have that product reconditioned so that it is safe to eat. It might be produce that needs to be washed. It might be something that's not properly labeled. And so it's important to consider all food products as something that might be appropriate for donation, and if need be, to work with the nonprofit to whom you're distributing it, and as a recommendation of precaution, perhaps enter into some sort of agreement that describes who is obliged to do what, so that you make sure that you're compliant with the law.
Terrific. And Brett, we appreciate the comment. We do not want your raw chicken donated. Like
I will suggest until we're going to stick with shelf stable products until we grow a little bit or have different mechanisms. So we're going to stick with, really safe products for the time being.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I don't think we're going to be rolling sushi or anything anytime soon. So that's.
And I wasn't suggesting that for the bigger table, but for the bigger picture.
We're just giving you the business, John. That's
no, that's a good update, though. Thank you.
No, terrific stuff. Thank you all. Are there any other questions, either about the tax deductibility, the food safety plans, or Good Samaritan laws? Terrific.
Jump in real quick, Alan, and just from our perspective, I think the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Act is one of those that it doesn't have as much industry knowledge as I would expect. We have a lot of large donors that when you explain the Bill Emerson Act, they kind of get a deer in the headlights look. So I think the more education we continue to put out on that is better. I don't think we can ever, even though it's been out since what, 96, John, you said?
Correct.
There's people still don't know it's there. So I think the more we can continue to promote that, the better, because a lot of folks out there doesn't know that they are completely covered by that act.
Right, and I'll say, just say in the literature on food donations for the needy, fear of liability continues to be the largest hurdle that prevents people from, or companies from, donating.
So again, addressing those issues, no fear of liability here because of again, the Good Samaritan laws in place, because of the food safety plans in place, and good news, there's a tax benefit by donating as well. So just want to, again, cover off just some of the basics on that. With that, we're going to switch gears yet again. I'm going to give a quick status report and then talk about the future vision for where we're going with Bigger Table. And you all are going to help. So first, let's start with the status. If you can go back just one slide for a second. Just to remind everybody of our mission and vision, our job is to bring together the food and beverage industry to collaborate and deliver on a series of charitable and economic growth initiatives to benefit Chicagoland. Because we had done the pilot last year, and because of the incredible need we're seeing based on COVID, it is a natural to lean in to what we can do as a group in terms of addressing food insecurity. But I also want to be clear, we're not just a food insecurity organization. We really are about bringing the food and beverage industry together to see all of the things we might be able to do to give back to Chicagoland, help communities across Chicagoland, and make it generally a better place to live. We believe, and our vision is by working with and through the food and beverage industry, we can work more effectively, have a bigger impact for the community, and better engage employees and the Chicagoland communities we serve. So just, again, while a lot of what we're talking about is about addressing food insecurity, that's because that's what we've been doing this year. That wasn't necessarily the way we were sort of conceived and set up. We're merely leaning into what is a clear issue, where we have at least part of a solution, which is great. Okay, so now please move forward. So what have we done this year? Let me be incredibly clear about that. We've delivered 260,000 servings of healthy food and beverage already this year. And just to kind of give sense of this, and you all may know this individually within your companies, but certainly not collectively, that is 3,000 pounds of Fibersol, and that is more than 7,000 pounds. Actually, wow, it's actually more like 12,000 pounds of dairy powders. That's 1,500 pounds of soy protein isolate. That's wow, 1,200 pounds of cocoa. That's not very much sugar because we don't have much sugar added to most of our stuff. That's 59 pounds of stevia, and hundreds and hundreds of pounds of flavoring from our friends at FONA. It's a significant effort, and really just so proud of the generosity and just the incredible work from all of you. The other thing I'm proud of is it's a good looking product that's put together by all of us. So again, not just the shipping of the ingredients. Many of you will remember back in February, we were at the Northern Illinois Food Bank, and we literally stuck the stickers for the bigger table package onto the packaging itself. IIT provided a whole bunch of terrific help, and really appreciate their support and really the support of everybody who really rolled up their sleeves in order to get all of this done. And many of you have heard from either me or from Andy Dratt or from Gabriella Dasakal, and we have the support to do at least 250,000 more servings between now and the end of the year. That's amazing. That's really stepping up when the community calls. And again, so inspirational to me. I thought, I don't know, can we go back and ask again? And I said, well, we won't know until we ask. And we asked, and every company has generously said yes. So thank you all for that. And we are looking to 2021 to sort of expand participation. So we've worked with a group of about 16 companies. We think that just needs to become a whole lot more companies for lots of good reasons, and create a more proactive plan. We've been sort of flying by the seat of our pants in this first year, and we would like to be a little more planful and strategic as we look forward. So a goal for 2021 is to deliver at least 1.5 million servings of nutritious food to Chicagoland area food banks, food pantries, and other food agencies, which is, again, amazing. I mentioned that the shortfall in food, in meals projected by Feeding America will be somewhere between 17 and 23 million in the greater Chicagoland area. And wow, it's inspirational that we could help focus, or we could help sort of fill the gap, and almost 10% of that. And again, if you all and the others who we're going to need to recruit for the effort are willing, wow, maybe we do set a goal of trying to fill 10% of that gap moving forward. To be an admirable goal. Next slide, please. I'd also like to report just other great news, and again, and more thank yous needed. So we've had over $14,000 coming in from individual private donors. Some are on this call and some are not. we just want to thank you all for that. It means a lot to really have people sort of put their shoulder into it and make those things happen. We've also received a second generous grant this year from ADM Cares, which is their corporate foundation. Thank you so much to ADM Cares for that incredible support. And we've just learned in the last day or so that we've received a generous grant from the Annie E. Casey Foundation. And that grant will help us to get more of our workforce development. It'll help us to ensure that this is a replicable model that could be done in other parts of the country or around the world, and that we can continue to sort of grow a sustainable business model. So again, these donations ensure that we can continue to grow. We've done a lot in our first not even year, but there's so much more we can do and so much more need that we can really address. Next slide, please. So thinking about kind of the big question, how can the food and beverage industry give back to Chicagoland? And what can we do to really maximize that? So we want to continue to address food insecurity and support food banks and pantries, as we've already discussed. We want to sort of raise the bar, and I would love to see that be more consistent, more planned, more strategic, continue to be tasty and nutritious. Relatively easy for us to put together this year. I have a dream that would become a little bit more meal focused, so more focused on very more center of the plate items rather than sort of beverages or snacks or something like that. I hope that we can continue to address food waste, continue to build a sustainable model, and I want to tap into that amazing energy from IIT. Would love to have students help come up with, or so food science students help come up with the next product or two, and maybe we do that on an ongoing basis. We know the other great challenge that Chicago will be facing. We have hungry people now, and we're going to have employed people for a while. We feel strongly that leaning into workforce development and training, specifically for positions in the food and beverage industry, will be incredibly important, especially food and beverage manufacturing. We could do that as an enhanced job board. There's many things we can do in order to assist. Last year, we began the work on helping raise a seed fund for food and beverage entrepreneurs, especially women and minorities, or minority founders. Due to COVID, that effort has taken a back seat, but I wonder whether there's a time in the near future when we may be able to lean into that again and start that effort back up. Again, incredibly important for Chicagoland and for creating a more diverse and inclusive food and beverage industry. And another issue that has come up several times, and both Sheila and Chad referred to it, that's creating sort of a volunteer bank, which is to say when food banks need volunteers, they're struggling with volunteers in the midst of COVID, can we help tap them into food and beverage companies who may have employees who could volunteer for the day or begin to help with more of that? What can we do as an organization to help sort of channel those volunteers to where they're most needed? And in some cases, their particular skills in the food industry may be especially valuable. And of course, I'm open to many other ideas, and I'm going to actually turn over the floor to all of you in a moment to think about what that might look like and what else we should be thinking about being able to give back to the greater Chicagoland area. Next slide, please. So we were planning to go to breakout groups. We are not going to do that. We've promoted you all to speakers so that we can literally have this conversation as sort of I don't want to say a free-for-all, but certainly a more open and hopefully fun conversation with the whole group. With that, If we can stop sharing the slide so we can all see each other just a little bit. You don't all have to turn on your cameras, but if maybe a few of you could, that'd be great. And then just want to talk a little bit about what things should we be thinking about? What should the next food products be? What are the other ways we as the food and beverage industry may be able to give back to the greater Chicagoland area? Would love to hear your thoughts. Let's brainstorm a little bit.
So Alan, I think you and I talked about, you know, kind of moving towards maybe a kind of a versatile mac and cheese or something along those lines. I think that makes sense as a next step. You know, we came up with some pretty creative ideas last time you and I kind of whiteboarded everything. So I think that's definitely a good one.
Yeah, so we do have a few ideas on the table, sort of a healthier macaroni and cheese, maybe addressing some of the sodium concerns that we hear. There's also been a plant-based chili has been mentioned. Protein and fiber bars have been mentioned. And again, could take many other forms. Oh, a protein pancake, a protein enhanced pancake has been discussed. And really, again, we can talk about the food product itself, or even something even separate from that effort.
What about the process for identifying excess ingredients or foods that can be then turned into something else with companies within the Chicago area? I mean, can you describe how it's worked so far? Because that might be a catalyst for additional ideas of how to bring people together.
So I'll say and I would invite anyone to sort of chime in. Like it's a bit of a difficult process. You sort of start by saying, well, what do you have? And then the answer is, well, I don't know. What do you need? And it's like, I don't know. What are we going to make? I don't know. What do we have? And then, so there's, I'll say there's a lot of triangulation sort of in the early parts of that. I'm not sure we have a great process, but we do have, but we do have a process for saying, here's what may be needed. And again, the other challenge with that, of course, John, is we want to make sure we're creating products that meet the needs of the food insecure in the greater Chicagoland area. So there's a lot of things we can make that, you know, might not be nutritious or might not add. So we by looking at things like protein and fiber, we address nutrients of concern. The dietitians love to make sure that we're that are being addressed within people's diets. Also, I'll say servings of fruits and vegetables, incredibly important as well. Again, sometimes shelf stability issues with those, but there is no perfect process. What we found is you have to have a starting point. And once we have that starting point, what we're seeing is organizations saying, I can help, which has been, again, incredibly powerful and a great way to progress at this point. I think we're still working on some facilitation work, but there's no magic that says, like, you know, I have, you know, algae protein. What are we going to make out of it?
If I can make a couple of comments, Alan, I think that, you know, one of the opening thoughts when we started this was that there were folks with inventory that was otherwise going to go to waste, and that would be an obvious source of ingredients. And I think we've learned that from the folks we've talked to that that's usually less of an issue. I mean, we might find that occasionally, but a lot of what has been donated so far was kind of done for us, or, you know, in some cases it was produced for us. So I think that if we look forward, there are going to be a couple of avenues to expanding the ingredient base. One is, you know, now that we have a good picture of the benefit, you know, outside of the societal good that the donations make, you know, we have with the tax deduction other benefits to companies to donating materials, and some that, quite frankly, they can use it as a tool, as a financial tool, to help in some cases with their own taxes. So I think we would be able to go. I envision that we will be talking to some people with large portfolios. Take ADM, for example. It's perfect. They touch almost everything, right? So you could either say, hey, what do you have right now? And we can find a home for that. Or what would you be willing to do, generally speaking? And then we will come to you as we have a need. But I also think that over time, what we'd like to be able to do is build up a database of companies that want to participate, that either A, have specific things. You know, I'm a single line producer of something, and I will happily donate some of that something when you need it, but you don't need it yet, right? So you would know who they are, or you'd have a more broad offering from a company like ADM who could say, yes, we would allow, you know, we're open to doing these things. And then there would be other folks like FONA and Edlon, for example, who provided more customized solutions, and you kind of learn what everyone's willing to do. But that eventually it is a bit of both of what Alan discussed. It's not just, you know, we have a product idea, let's go find ingredients for it, but you'd be balancing that off against a list or a database of ingredients that you've already identified that are at your disposal, and then you would incorporate those in, and ultimately you'd line the two up. So a system would tell you, oh, you've now sourced enough materials to make this formula, because, you know, that is also another area of donation, quite frankly, is the formulations, right? I mean, that's intellectual property, that's worth money. People have to, but we need those to be donated. So you can really marry all those things up. But I think getting the story, you know, the early adopters have been folks who shared the vision, who wanted to help, you know, big players in the Chicagoland area. But I think we now have the makings of a really compelling story to make it easier for people to participate and to want to, and then to get benefit, not just social benefit, but to some degree financial benefit as well.
Well, Andy, to that point, I think I would suggest that if we had 4 formulas that we wanted, right, for 4 different products, and then we just went and looked at the companies that could source for those. So we started simple and then figure out as we expand, right? I think that's where you're kind of going with this. So we
absolutely. And I mean, as much as we would, I also think personally that we're likely to stay in powdered formats for a while. Some element of that, it's easier to execute. It's easier to formulate. You've got the kind of inherent shelf stability, easy to ship. But you know, if we're creative, there's no limit to what we could do there. I mean, you could do omelets, right? I mean, it's all with powdered ingredients, and it also gives us control over the nutritionals. So I would love to be able to expand outside of that, but it's like easier to execute, I think. And yeah, so what Alan was talking about earlier, we have a handful of other ideas, things that we could do right away, like the protein pancakes, like the mac and cheese or a cheese sauce anyway. So I think it's I agree with you, Matt.
So a couple of things our team had come up with as we were talking about this was the mac and cheese part of it. And Alan, you mentioned lower sodium, but there's also opportunities to weave in or include dried vegetables like a dried cauliflower powder in something like that to increase the vegetable servings in a powdered format. And then also other side dishes, so whole grain rice dishes with seasoning mixes. You mentioned the chili. So that to me gets us into more of the meal side of it and side dishes. So those were a couple of things that we were thinking about, and happy if there's not already formulas existing that, you know, we'd be happy to work with others to put those ideas together. So.
That's great, Carol. Thank you. Terrific thinking. And we will take you up on that offer.
Yeah.
Terry Miller, I'm going to put you on the spot. I love your comment on a spice mixture that can enhance flavors of products that are already being distributed at the pantries. Can you give us some ideas of like what would we be sprinkling it, or what would people be sprinkling it over, so that we know what sort of spice mixtures would make the most sense?
Right. I'm not sure if you can hear me. I often have trouble with my speaker. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Oh, fantastic. You know, something that came to mind was those convenience foods that a lot of people purchase in the grocery store. And, you know, the families that we serve are busy working families just like all of us. And so they're often looking for things that will help them make a quick, nutritious meal. And, you know, we already are providing lots of canned vegetables and fruit. Pasta and rice are very common, big jars of peanut butter are very common. And so the thought that maybe there is something you could do to create something that was convenient. What came to mind was Zatarans, the rice mixture or those couscous mixtures that you get, and they are so flavorful yet filled with so much salt. And I thought, perhaps something like that you could add to rice or pasta that would give it some flavor that would perhaps be lower in sodium. I just would add that spices are often a luxury item. If you have a very tiny budget, you're not going to spend $2.99 for spices. And so that was the other thought that was sort of running through my head. Oils, flavored oils, and those kinds of things that we use to make our food taste good are often not available.
It's so interesting that you say that. I was just recently approached by it's a relatively early stage company who they're actually doing vitamin enhanced spices, which the initial thought was they would be shipped overseas for some WHO projects, and sort of that's what they were designed for. And yet I wonder whether there's a possibility here as well.
What I like about that idea, it'd be interesting to know if, like, from the food banks, if there are specific staples. So I'm making this up, cans of black beans that are very commonly donated and that are, I mean, they're nutritious, but they're fundamentally boring, right? So what could we do? I think it's a great idea. If you targeted specific mixes for staples so that you can help people, entice people to eat them, things that are inherently healthy and that the food banks might already have, I wouldn't say in abundance, but might have more, more access to.
It's funny that you would say that, because we've been inundated with pork and garbanzo beans, chickpeas, for months and months as a result of some of the trade issues with China. The government has been providing lots and lots of chickpeas, and yeah, boring. So it's really difficult. Our dietitians are often trying to come up with exciting recipes because we're just giving away chickpeas all the time. But beans in general, I think, are an item, we try to focus on really protein-rich foods, and so beans are always a good option. So any kind of mixture that you could use beans, or combine it with rice, or combine it with the other vegetables that a pantry might be giving away would be great.
Yeah, this is Sheila. We tend to have a lot of asks for spices, and again, something that we don't always have available. And we do, as I mentioned, we do get a lot of food from the government, and it is a lot of beans, and we have a lot of like frozen chicken and frozen pork. So spices are always excited when they're available for our partners out in the community.
Yeah, what I envision in a package like that would be some sort of meal. Would be instead of being a generic spice, it would be a mix of spices for a specific meal. Maybe that's a skillet meal, like a chicken and what have you type of a meal. But I think what also makes it a little tricky is the diversity within the cultures that we have. It's really hard to make one that's universally has appeal. So it can get a little bit dicey on that side of it, just because we do have such a large grouping of different cultures within the Chicagoland area. So to make one to fit every shoe, so to speak, would be a little bit hard. But I envision that as more of kind of a meal mix, where, like I said, we could pair a chicken thigh, chicken breast, chicken wing, etc. With that, and then you've got a one skillet meal.
I love the thinking. Any other thoughts or any other? Again, it's always fun to talk about what we should make next. And want to make sure everybody gets a chance to sort of put that in the middle of the table. But then I also want to push a little bit on, so outside of what the next product is, what are the ways we can help Chicagoland? And I really don't want to skim over the jobs piece. I think it'll be incredibly important over the next few years to ensure that that there are jobs and that I'll say that's what builds communities, and there will be places that will ultimately suffer if we don't have those in place. Thoughts on how that could work?
Alan.
Yes.
Alan, you got me?
Yes.
So there's an opportunity for reaching out through communications when the food items are distributed. You might want to consider including resource information with the food product, you know, for people that are struggling with food deserts, resource information, maybe even suggested uses for the product. And just like, you know, any cereal manufacturer will say, you know, part of a balanced diet. So there may be nutritional informational sheets that could be, we could challenge the students to design those so that they work for multicultural environments, maybe non-English speaking subgroups in Chicago, so that the information is readily accessible and assimilated. So and it could not be just on food and diet and nutrition, but just other resources, you know, like if you want to segue into the discussion on jobs, you could put something in there, but it's a way to include some outreach information.
You know, Armand, that's an interesting idea. Even though federal dollars are tough right now, USDA could have some money in the state for exactly something like that, because it combines labor and, you know, nutrition. So Ellen, you know, we can have a side talk about that and reaching out to USDA, but I think that's an interesting take, Armand.
Yeah.
Terrific. Other thoughts or ideas?
Hey, Alan, this isn't tied to jobs, but I was thinking about on your slide when you talked about seed money for minority and women-owned businesses. Some of us have access to the incubator type of programs. And so one thing that this group could do is maybe sponsor, or if we're part of that, sponsor those startups in the Chicago area as part of any of those incubator programs that we participate in, whether that is covering travel expenses or additional consulting for them. Those are things I think this group could do in some sort of, whether it's product development, marketing, financing, like so many different functions within our companies. We could create a support network of coaches for those startup businesses. And I think that there would be any number of people who would volunteer to help coach those kinds of companies.
Terrific. I love the suggestion. Thank you. Brett, I saw your mute come off for just a second there. I think we
No, I'm excited to hear the ideas that are coming out. I'd love to hear the needs in the community. I think that one is really where I've always had an interest in hearing directly from the banks and the pantries, and what do the clientele really need, or what's that extra element that's going to help take something that's already out there down a much sort of more helpful path from a nutritional perspective. So the more of that kind of, you know, perspective that we can get, I think for the, you know, ingredient companies like ADM, that's golden, because then we can say, okay, listen, we've got a pretty full pantry, and at any point in time, we might be able to support, you know, a variety of different needs in the community. You know, I think we've talked about this, and certainly the thing that I'm really just, you know, interested in doing is just trying to get into some sort of a cadence that we know we're going to put goals out there and we're going to try to go push, right? Because I think just like any other organization, you sort of have to have a plan for getting things moving and move forward on the plan, and ideation right now is part of that. But as we move into 2021, if we're hoping to get 1.5 million servings into the community, you know, that means probably hitting the ground running in Q1 with something great and tasty that goes into those distribution networks. So I'm excited to participate, and I know that ADM's already sent a few ideas around, but I think we'd love to hear about the others that are out there in the community. I guess one question I had, again, since we have some of our community partners here, we are a food and beverage network. We're talking a lot about consumable food items. Is there any beverage need out there that we're aware of? I mean, it may be more difficult that we consider that, but you know, nutritious beverages beyond powdered mixes, is that something that there's an interest or need in, or is it just too difficult to sort of maintain and distribute that?
Chad
ran away before I could ask him the question.
So I was just doing some deep contemplation there. I think the protein chocolate mix probably hit all points. I was struggling to think of another beverage mix.
What about in theory in a can or in a bottle? Would that be of interest?
I'm sorry, what was it, Andy? I couldn't hear you.
It was ready to drink. Would that be of interest?
Oh, that would be, I would think anything that's ready to consume would be absolutely interesting for sure.
Does it hurt that we're shipping water around? I mean, just from a logistical standpoint, that's why I thought the packet was so great. But there's companies that would get beverage line time, I'm sure. I mean, Andy, between you and I, we could find them, or Brett, obviously, since you guys have expanded. So
we just won't find 12-ounce cans. That's not going to happen right now.
So.
You know, water is always an important part of our network. You know, University Park, which is an area that had some water supply issues earlier in the year, we were shipping a lot of water over to them for their community. So, you know, again, nobody likes to ship water just because of the the cost associated, but it is a need that we still have, and we'll still continue to have.
Alan, maybe just put that on the table. Maybe we can find a Tetra Brick manufacturer that could do water, high protein beverage, everything. We just get a day of line time and kind of go that way. And then it's shelf stable, obviously, for well over a year. So, and then we could run water to start, then run a beverage, and, you know, get them all shipped to one place to you guys. Just a thought.
What do people think about, just back to beverage mixes, you know, we all know the two that we did, but something more like that would be closer to a supplement, in that it's like a vitamin, like more, I think of a stick pack like Crystal Light, but that was just to make water taste different and would provide some amount of, you know, vitamins. Like you could do, without making claims about efficacy, but, you know, you could do an A, C, and E and have something like for immunity that typically helps with immunity. That you would just add to a bottle of water. So super easy to make. It's not nutritious. It's not a meal. It's just, but it would be doing something, you know, it would be helping in a different way with some fortification.
Yeah, anything along those lines, I think is unique. And I mean, it's stuff I consume myself. So, you know, if it was something along the lines of a immunity boost, I could see that being very successful.
So I don't want to cut off the ideas. So please feel free to, if you're sort of wake up in the middle of the night with an amazing idea, feel free to email and send it to my attention or Myra's attention. And we'll continue to put sort of ideas in the hopper. I do want to work hard to end on time here. We have just a couple of other just housekeeping items to address. Again, thank you all for joining today. This really is about gratitude for everybody. Everybody plays a role. This crazy project we piloted last year, and that's kind of coming to fruition this year. It literally doesn't work without everybody on this call and a few others as well. And it's, again, amazing to me that just in the past week or so, we said, hey, let's do it again. And everybody stepped up again, one more time, which is, it's just amazing. You all absolutely blow me away. And many others. Anybody we tell the story of what we're doing is like, that's incredible. And it really is. So thank you. And you can I think maybe my mindfulness exercises have been going on a little bit too long, but the quote just there, Myra, you skipped ahead a little too fast. Today I choose to live with gratitude for the love that fills my heart.
the peace that rests in my spirit and the voice of hope that says that all things are possible. There's a lot of challenges in Chicagoland, I'll say, in the world at large. It's amazing that we as a group are coming together to begin to address them and to talk about what we can do to do more. Hopefully that makes you feel as just, I'll say, humbled and honored and everything good as it does me. So thank you, thank you, thank you from the bottom of really my heart and the heart of so many others. And with that, just one final thank you. Thank you again for your help in our fight against hunger and food insecurity in the greater Chicagoland area. Appreciate all of your time today. If there are any materials you need or specific contacts, again, don't hesitate to reach out to Myra or myself, and we'll be more than happy to make sure you get the information that you need. We will see you all again soon. Thanks for your time again today. And again, onward and upward as we begin this next project.